you can get to the evidential questions, but you have to get to the moral questions now, because that's, I think, at the heart of the deconstruction is if there's hypocrisy in the church, if there's a social issue that is being ignored, or if the Bible is responsible for these things, then why should I believe anything you say after that?
You know, it's interesting, Abdu, because as I listen to Dave, I think about how the questions have shifted, right? So now the questions are typically around justice and identity, right? So human sexuality, race and ethnicity, those types of issues. And you're right, Dave, a lot of people are saying, this is where culture is, this is where Christianity is. I'm going to agree with cultures, so therefore my faith must be wrong, right? But it used to be that we heard a lot of evidential questions about the historicity of Scripture. I think about Josh McDowell's book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict. He was answering different questions than justice questions. As you have spent a lot of time on college and university campuses, what are you hearing as far as some of the major questions that are causing doubt for the Christian faith?
Yeah, well, I think you're nailing it right on the head, is that the questions indeed have shifted and they've centered more on justice, more on some social issues. And we have to be very careful that we don't pigeonhole that into, oh, that's an SJW kind of mentality, because the Bible actually is practically obsessed with issues of justice, fairness, and morality. So we have to be careful there, but they have shifted. In fact, it used to be the case that you go on a college campus and what you prepare for is questions like, how can you possibly believe someone rose from the dead? How can you possibly believe that God had anything to do with creation when evolution has clearly debunked the creation myths of the Bible? Don't you know that this book and this book have contradictions in them within the Bible, and we shouldn't believe this book? After all, it's this book of dusty old times for dusty old people. Those questions are still being asked, but they're not the primary question anymore. The primary question that's being asked is not, is the Bible true? The question is the Bible moral? That's the first question they ask, or it's the primary question.
Is God good?
Is God good? Is Christianity, maybe there's a God, but it certainly isn't the God of the Bible because XYZ reasons. Does the Bible justify all kinds of social ills? These are the questions now. Even if they're not asking them outright, they're definitely thinking them. So I find that they are wondering, do science and the Bible conflict? They are wondering, is there historicity behind this book, or is it a book of fables? They're wondering that, but they're primarily concerned with, I read some troubling passages, or I saw Sam Harris on his podcast talk about how the Bible condones slavery, or Richard Dawkins says that God is a malevolent, pestilential, megalomaniacal, genocidal bully. And that's a lot of...
I'm impressed that you said that.
Yeah.
You're able to remember that.
I don't know how I got it out of my head, but they're wondering, is this book true? Is this true? Because you can tell me all day long that Luke got right in the first chapters that Lysanias was co-tetrarch of Abila. Who cares if the Bible is sexist inherently? Who cares if the Bible is inherently racist? And then you get to answer that question, because you can get to the evidential questions, but you have to get to the moral questions now, because that's, I think, at the heart of the deconstruction is if there's hypocrisy in the church, if there's a social issue that is being ignored, or if the Bible is responsible for these things, then why should I believe anything you say after that? And I think it's important for us to acknowledge this, because I think the Bible properly understood, Christianity properly lived, discipleship properly given in the church leads to a realization that the Bible is actually not the cause of society's ills, but could help us cure them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that certainly has been our history. A fair reading of history shows that the church, although we have not been perfect, Dave, as you said, there have been abuses, by and large has been the greatest contributor to answering the ills of what is broken in the world.